Good afternoon, everyone. Brendan here over at MJog. Thank you for joining us. Our second run through to the flu campaigns for this year and how we can use different elements of the MJog software to help you out with that. Now, almost cancelled our webinar straight away there. From our side today, you've got myself, Brendan, Customer Engagement Manager. We may have spoken about different things before over time, or you may have seen previous webinars with me on there. In the background, we have Fraser and Matt, who are going to be looking after any questions you give to us. So this afternoon, I want to go through this in 3 separate stages. Many of you have probably come along just to hear, how do I do a campaign? So I'm going to do that first. Then we're going to look at attaching some documents to your messages, because you may have something like a newsletter or a pamphlet that you want patients to read, which may be around something like processing them through the practice as you're trying to keep people distanced and so forth. And then for those of you who are going to be using the barcoding system, which I appreciate isn't all of you, then yes, we're going to cover off how we can also send your patients their NHS barcode as a message. So here we are. Here's my MJog system. This should, of course, be familiar to you all at this point. Let's dive on in and get ourselves logged in. So first of all, how do you do your recalls? And again, this applies to any message which you want to send to a large list of patients. So going forward, it's not just your flus, it's your NHS health checks and everything else like that. So let's start off right here. Communicate with my patients. You have a list of patients, you want to get a message to them, this is the way. And you'll find 2 separate areas in here. Look up to the left. Now messages and campaigns. What we're looking for, campaigns, is exactly what you want. Now messages are for smaller groups, and it'd be a longer way of getting to the end result. You may already have a bunch of templates ready to go in your system. But if not, that's not a problem. Again, you can create anything you want to send at any point. Create a new message. If you have different channels that you can send through, I'll ask which ones you want to use. And you create your message as however you want it to be. For this first one, for this initial campaign, just how we go through the process, I'm going to start by building something entirely from scratch. When we talk about things like the attachments and the barcodes, we're going to pull some bits out of the MJog library. We've got a load of different templates in there for different things, but let's start off here with just if you want to do something entirely of your own. In our template editor here, we type what we want and have a bunch of mail merge fields at the top, which can put different pieces of data in place. So, dear name, you are invited to vaccination. Something like that. Now, of course, we make sure we haven't got rogue typos and so forth. This is very much what most recalls look like, in fact. Dear whoever you are invited to a thing. Call the practice to book yours, or reply decline if you don't want to. In a few minutes, we're going to use this decline as a response which the system can then add back into your clinical records. Going to go continue from there. And this is the page we need. We've got 4 steps to get through to get this campaign out of the door. Excuse me. Now there is a section here which you may well not have on your system, so I'm not going to touch on this one. We're going to stick to the key points. We can make any edits we need to do. We've got our little blue icon here which will show us how the text should look. And if we need to edit that, we can go back into Setup Message Template and do any changes we need to do. The next thing we will require is a list of the either EMIS numbers or NHS numbers of the patients you need to reach. This needs to be in a spreadsheet, so you're going to have a CSV style of spreadsheet. If you try feeding an Excel spreadsheet into MJog, it's going to look at you all cross-eyed and confused. So a CSV file is what you want. I've left mine on my desktop just because it's easier to find, but we waltz into here. I'm going to choose a file. There it is on my desktop. Use this. When we hit upload, the system looks in that file, it finds a bunch of numbers, and now it's going to ascertain who it can and can't reach. I don't have a huge amount of patients on my system here, but these are the results I've got. Just so happens the majority of them have got a number. I can text them. But there are some that I can't reach. Now, in a list of 100, that's not a problem. We could probably go through this list we have below, page by page, and find them. There they are. There's one there in red. But you don't need to do that. Look to the bottom, the very bottom of this page, and there's a button where you can get all of those cannot send patients and put them onto a spreadsheet as well. Those are the patients who are going to need a phone call or a letter or something. They're not getting a text anyway, is the matter. So we've fed in our spreadsheet. It's told us who it can and can't reach. We grab a list of those it can't reach and continue. 2 down, 2 to go. Next, we need to tell it, when do we want this to go? You can send stuff on the same day. You can also buffer it out over several dates. We have a calendar. Pick your day. One thing to consider. If you are about to send a message to several thousand patients, for instance, saying to call the practice, you may not want them all to do that at the same time. To that end, hold Control down on your keyboard and pick more days. If my list was then 1,000 patients, I split that up so it's 250 a day, which should be more manageable. There are some further options below. For the sake of your recalls, because of coding and so forth, you don't really want to repeat this. If you need to do a second message out, chances are there'll be a different code you need to use for that. So don't repeat them. Deliver messages during, well, daytime is going to be the most useful for these. That's between 9 AM and 6 PM, which is when you're open in the main. So if you're asking patients to ring you, send it during daytime so that when they get the text, when they ring you, there's someone there. Evening would be between 6 PM and 9 PM. Of course, many of you may not be open at that point, and then we're relying on the patient to then ring you back if they remember the following day. Anytime is exactly as it sounds. If we hit this straight away option, there is no buffer between you hitting send and the system beginning to process it. You may want to not do that one. So for this piece, really pick your dates, one or more, and continue. For normal recalls, for things which are, well, maybe not so much recalls, for messages that aren't clinical, let's say, for things like Christmas opening hours and such the like, that would be enough. We've got a send messages section has opened up, but I'm not going to go through that yet. Set up clinical coding. So this allows us to tie codes onto this message. But we're going to pick that up when we go on to our next piece about attachments, because I've already got a template for that one. So set up your message, give it your patients, when do you want it to go, and in our next piece we'll talk about doing the coding. If we dive into send messages, of course this will be the final piece when you want it to go. It gives us a review of how many we're sending and when they're going. and what it's going to look like. Indeed, you can send yourself a copy as well. Optionally send test message, put your details down here with a phone number, hit send test message, and that can take a minute or two to get to you. But yeah, you'll get a copy through and you can check that it's right in your hand. If it is, all happy to go, not a problem. We can send messages along the bottom here. We can even send ourselves a copy when it goes to the patients. Are you sure? Yes, I am. And you'll be pushed onto this page. Now, that's getting a message out of the door. And of course, I need to cover this coding section. So I'm going to talk now about using the attachment side of it, and we're also going to bring smart messaging into it. Now, smart is the app, MJog Messenger. If you don't have this on your system and you're interested, do get in touch with your account manager who can talk you through the issues on the costings on that. I'm going to dive back into communicate with my patients. On my system here, you see we've got these little blue phones, and those are the text templates, how it would come through just as a normal text. We've also got these black obelisk jobs. These are smartphones, and so it lets us see what these templates look like. What I have here is one that's come out of our library, and the top of it is important. It tells us we need to make some changes to this before we think of sending it. We can amend that as and how we need to. Now, of course, you may not have any of these in here already. So we're going to go into this download templates box near the top. And there's a whole raft of different things in here. Let's dive into Flu. I've got a barcode one here. The templates we're going to use got this barcode 2020, FluVac 2020 barcode. That's coming soon. We're going to put some extra little tweaks to this one before we release it to you all. But further down, we've got all sorts of different ones that we can use. Again, if you want to see what they look like, click on the little phone icons. There's my text. And there's my one for the app that needs some editing. You can have a vaccination, call us to book it, and then an option at the bottom here to tell you if they want it or not. And we're going to attach a file to this as well. I'm going to download that. Because I've got so many of them already in my list, it'll be FluVac 3. And there it sits. I'm going to grab that message. This time we're using the app and text. These options, leave them be. Essentially, if you're using more than just mobile phone connections, if you're using email and voice, for instance, this would then ask which order you want the system to run with. The golden rule really would be having internet or smart as the first attempt, which it will always be by default, and then text would be your secondary, then maybe email below that, and voice as the final option. I'm going to continue from there. Same page, exactly the same page as we had last time, but of course I want to do some tweaks on this message. So I need to set up message template. The instructions for the first edit I need to do are all written up the top here. It goes through it step by step. I'm not going to say any more on that. I'm just going to get it done. We scroll our way down. There's a button, this phone button here. I'm going to open that up. It gives us information on what that image is. It is just an image. So we don't want to change any of this side of it. We've got this image info tab. We leave that well alone. We want to change the link. And you see it's got tel and a bunch of numbers. This needs to be the phone number you want patients to ring to contact you in this instance. It might be your normal reception number, but it could be another one. If you want them to speak to a different department or you've set up a hotline, give it that number. That's now edited the button. We can't see any different at this point, but that has edited the button. Scroll up to the top. This big orange blob here. In fact, it says here the final thing to do. We right click, delete table. Done. And that is that whole section done. We can preview this. Got a little preview button below. And that's better. That's how it should be looking. Now, I want to put an attachment on this. I want to give them some information about how they've got to turn up and they're going to wait in the car park for so long and we're going to call them through one by one and so on and so forth. You've got a bunch of information you want to give out anyway. As long as you've got a PDF file of it, we can use it. Okay, so here we are. Matt put me together this little number. Whoop! Oh, guess what I did there? I closed the whole thing, of course. Now, this is actually a regular question we get. You've started setting up something, you've walked away from your screen for 5 minutes, you've come back, the whole thing's locked and kicked you out. Not a problem. This button here, this will take us into anything and everything we've already done or started doing. We've not done any now messages, we've been doing campaigns, and there it is. Is that the one? Let's do date time created. FluVac 3, there it is. We're back in here again. So I need to set up this template. It didn't save the changes because I hadn't got that far. Get rid of that. Sort the number out in here. Okay. Now my PDF file, I want to attach to it. It says here, do you want to attach a file? Drag and drop. Grab it, drop it in here. It goes green when you're in the right place. 1. View attachment has appeared at the bottom. And we can move that around a little bit. We kind of drag it to where we want it to be. So I can move that up just a little bit, like that. Give it that click to view. Want to preview it? Again, hit preview. Come get your flu jabs. A button for them to call you. Got an attachment for them to view. And do you want this vaccination below? You may want to put some wording above the view attachment piece for information on how we are accepting patients into the practice. Please view attachment below. Something like that. We can always send test messages from here as well. But let's continue. Here we are. We have our text version as well. Now we have attached a document to this, but patients need to know that it's there. Look above in our actual message template. It's easier to read it in green. It doesn't mention anything about that. Nothing about any documents at this point. Copy and paste this into your message. We've got a little piece here. I'm going to copy that. There's a button for it. And I'll put that in the top there. To view your file, click here. We may even want to change that around. Let's put some extra wording on that. For information on the vaccination, click that. Now, of course, with the app, when patients receive messages on that, it's already in a kind of, it's a rich messaging format anyway. They open it up, it appears in the app almost. With text, that will be different. when you start sending things like barcodes and attachments through the system, well, your patients are going to receive something that looks a little bit more like this. They'll have the bulk of the message above it, of course. So it'll be, dear whoever you are, blah, 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 decline or press, and then a link. That will then send them off to a web page containing the document you've attached. I've got a message, I've got an attachment with it. I'm going to feed it a load of patients. Grab my list of who's not getting the message and continue. Tell it when to send. Pick your dates. And then we set up our coding off the back of this message. In here is where we can tell the system what codes to apply to a patient record for different circumstances. And they're written out here already, such as messages delivered. Your message got into their phone. What code do you want to put into their record to say they got it? That's where these green crosses come in. We can click onto that. And yes, these look like options, but at this point, you can't use anything except the top one, which happens to be exactly what you want. This is do a code in the patient record. And we need to tell it which one that's going to be. So I'm just going to look up a code. There's a good chance I'll get the wrong one. But you know about codes way better than we ever will. So whichever is most relevant. Essentially, at this point, I'm thinking it's seasonal flu invite 1 SMS or something like that. We'll soon find out. I may well just cheat and use a we sent them a text code, if I'm honest, depending how long this wants to take to respond. Depending on the load, here we go. Oh, yeah, of course, there's all sorts of invitations here under many, many things. Okay, I'm going to entirely cheat and use the wrong code. Of course, what you put in here, the system will use, so don't copy me at this point. Get your correct code, whether it's SNOMED or READ or System 1 codes, get the right one in that box. And then your comment is whatever you want it to be. Seasonal flu invitation. SMS1. Comments, of course, are your own, up to you. We put our details in, we add action. So we can see that's now put in place there. Next to messages delivered. Messages delivered, that code and that comment overnight would then turn up in the patient record, provided they get the message. Now we've also asked, if they don't want their vaccination, they can message back. And we can see that here under patient responded, I do not want this vaccination. Fine. We can code that as well. Same green, well, this green cross, same option here. Of course, it's a different code. Let's see what we get for this one. At this point, what MJog's doing is it's going into the actual SNOMED database and pulling out anything which, of course, has decline written on it. If I'd put a more distinct search in there, that wouldn't have taken as long, I'm sure. Whichever. Decline of seasonal flu vaccine. So again, you use the correct code. Don't follow me on that one, use the correct one. You know that. Let's add that in. With those two in place, we are very, very nearly done
What we haven't done so far, though, is we have coded for the smart messages. Those are the ones to the MJog Messenger app. We need to essentially repeat this same coding piece in the text side. Okay. We've got decline here. What do you want us to code when a patient message is in decline? So again, in here, we look up whichever code we want to use. Let's put a bit more to it this time and see if that helps. Nothing. Here we go. Influenza decline. There are, of course, many. Let's grab one of those. Decline of seasonal flu vaccine. Messages delivered, same difference. We add a code into here. Of course, nothing. One of them. Make your codes as specific as they need to be, of course. But there we are. We've got our codes in if someone gets the message as a text. We've got the codes if someone gets the message to the app.
With them all done, remember you do want that one done. You can even come back to do this at a later date. After you've sent out a campaign, you can come back into here through that manage previous communications, and you can put a code in up to a fortnight later. At 15 days you can't, so you want to make it before 14 days. All well and good, we can get in and send our messages. Same page as before. Button at the bottom to send it, and we can send ourselves a test up front if we need to. So we've got a normal message out, which we can just do by text and just type it and text it. We've got our attachments one, and we can use our templates for that. Indeed, we don't have to even use a template for that. We can attach files to even a quick message, for instance. I could look up whoever it needs to be I need to get a message to, and I can chuck my attachment and my file at them straight away by either channel. Final piece will be this barcoding situation. And again, this probably isn't for all of you. Those of you who are thinking, what is this barcode all about? It's not for you. If you've not been told, chances are it's not for you anyway. But those of you who got in contact and asked about it, we had 4 or 5 sites get in contact asking us, are we supporting this? Is there any way that we can get these barcodes out to patients without sending letters to them all? Well, if you're going to send them a flu invite by text, you can send them the barcode by text as well. So yes, we don't have to do those letters. We're going to start again, communicate with my patients. And over the last few hours, we've been putting together something. It's not complete yet, but it's coming soon. But we have, for your side of things, download templates. In the flu section, we're going to have something like this flu 2020 barcode. What does it look like by text? Well, at the moment, it's a little bit like this. Very similar to what I'd already created. You are due a flu vaccination. Call us to book it. Reply decline if you don't want it. And we're going to put a link down and put a barcode as the attachment. So instead of attaching that document we had, it's going to send them off to a web page with that barcode in it. Same idea for our app. So free flu vaccination. Essentially, we want to put a nicer button in here, which makes it stick out nice and clear that they can press on a button and get that done. And nick this one. A FluVac 2020 barcode. And there it is. So I'm going to dive on in here. I'm going to use both channels because they're both there. Because we've set this up for you, you shouldn't need to do many tweaks, but if you want to, set up message template. There is the one for the app. We're going to put the instructions at the top of this as well. Remember, if you want to have a phone button on there, we're going to make sure that we turn that into a phone number, which is actually your number. Otherwise, it's a dead button and it's not much use to anyone. We're going to end up with there it is, tap to view your attachment. We're going to put something in there which is a bit clearer, a bit more obvious of this is your barcode. We will need this. Something to that effect anyway. Again, the text one's very similar to what we've created before. Come get your flu jabs. Tell us if you don't want them, and then click on the link. For your barcode. Now, how are these actually going to look? I can imagine some of you are already asking that. These barcodes, when you click on those links, will come through a little something like this. So you'll have identity of who it is. Where that currently says MJog account will be the name of the practice, and then you've got patient name and their barcode below that. And so that's going to come up on their screen, and then you can scan that from their phone screen. They could also download it and print it off. There's going to be these options at the top. This little hamburger stack button will be on the page when they find the barcode. And yes, they can send it to a PC and print it, download it, however they want to go. You should be all right if it's just on the handset. You've got the option there. The barcodes rely on having an NHS number in the patient record. To that end, once you've gone through your process with this, again, find your patient file, extract your can't sends, pick your dates, and set your coding. Do whatever you need to do with that one. Once you've got them all in place, you'll want to go into send messages. You're in here. You won't get a test barcode, okay? When you use this section, there's no patient linked to this. Okay? There's no patient, there's no NHS number. And so you'll hit test, send test message. It's going to come through into your phone, and you're going to get a page that says error on it. And of course, that's going to be a worry. That's just because you haven't got an NHS number for it to make a barcode out of. Patients who maybe are unregistered for whatever reason, something like that, if there is no NHS number, they will get the same error, but I'd imagine they will be very much the minority in your lists. Again, send your message whenever you're ready and get it gone. And that's campaigns. We've done a basic campaign from the ground up, building a text message of our own and sending that. We've done a message with an attachment on it for the PDF document. And we've done another one with the barcode on there. Another question we often get is, whoops, I hit send. As in, maybe I didn't want to do that. Do you want to stop a campaign going out? Not a problem. We're back in Manage Previous. Ones that are uploaded are the ones that are waiting to go. We're in here, we've got all these pieces we had before. We'll notice we have this summary which tells us what's going on. How many have already gone, how many have delivered, if we've had any replies, and we've got this control panel below. Top on the list here, cancel this communication, and that will, yes, stop the message going out. Delivery statuses will let us pull out lists of anyone who failed to get the message. We can get our cannot sends out of here as well if we missed them first time around. we can get a list of each individual reply to this specific message. Unlike the inbox on the MJog homepage, remember that one will also have any other reply you've had. This will only have responses to this campaign. And if we need to resend something, not a problem. Create a copy will take your wording and it'll take your coding. Essentially, you end up with a campaign half already built, where you feed it a new list of patients, tell it when to go, and then we get that sent.